Alaska's state constitution states that fish be utilized, developed and maintained on the sustained yield principle. In other words, salmon protection is uniquely written into the Alaska state constitution. State groups, like the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, work hard to ensure that the salmon population remains healthy while also supporting the commercial harvest for fishermen like us. Seafood is an undeniable economic resource for Alaska. The industry directly employs 60,000 people in the state, which means there are at least 60,000 people committed to protecting the environment that is home to this industry, not to mention the thousands more who enjoy the product at home. Further, Buying Alaska supports the world's last all-wild salmon run in Bristol Bay. Although Alaska is home to 47 different fish species, our fishermen focus on catching sockeye salmon, one of the 5 species of salmon. We source other seafood responsibly from fishermen peers so you can do all your seafood shopping in one spot, knowing you're making an ethical, sustainable choice. Bristol Bay hosts the world's largest commercial sockeye salmon fishery. Beginning in late May every year, salmon make the run upriver to spawn in one of the 5 rivers that feed into Bristol Bay, where we fishermen spend our time each summer. On average, 35.1 million sockeye salmon return to the rivers annually. Because of the bay's remote environment away from industrial development, and its healthy, largely untouched watershed, Bristol Bay is a vital refuge for both oceanic and freshwater fish species, including our beloved sockeye salmon. Every day, biologists count the salmon running into each river system as the salmon swim into protected spawning areas. Each commercial fisherman in Bristol Bay is constantly in contact with the biologists who are informing the fishermen whether or not they may put their nets in the water. Alaska's diligent tracking and management of the salmon population is protecting future generations of salmon to repeat the process as well as sustaining the world's salmon consumption. Bristol Bay is a unique source of salmon because the run remains completely unmanipulated by humans, save for close management and commercial fishing. This stands out because other regions of Alaska support their fish habitat with hatcheries. It is important to note that salmon from the southeast are not farmed. However, in order to support the fishery, many of the rivers in other parts of Alaska release hatchery-born salmon into the rivers to support the fish population. Bristol Bay's population has remained strong enough to avoid this type of support through tight management and responsible fishing. We are proud to continue that tradition and stand down when the law says it's time to protect the salmon rather than catch them to bring them home to you. Buy direct from the fisherman. Buying seafood from the fisherman gives you confidence that your fish have been properly handled, sustainably harvested from Alaska waters, and available to you at a fair price. Buying from Alaska may not be a traditionally local choice, but did you know that some seafood caught in the US is frozen, shipped to China for processing, and then shipped back to the US? Buying from us minimizes your food miles when buying Alaska Wild. We strive to source from only the best Alaska fishermen to provide you with a variety of other wild-caught salmon, whitefish, scallops, crabs, and more. When you know your fishermen, you know where your quality seafood came from. At Wild for Salmon, you will find almost all of our seafood products are once frozen, or flash frozen shortly after catch. Our salmon and wild seafood products are carefully handled, chilled and frozen within hours of harvest in order to offer peak preservation of flavor, texture, color and nutritional content. Seafood freezes exceptionally well as nutrients found abundantly in fish such as protein, essential minerals and vitamins A and D are unaffected by the freezing process. You'll never taste Alaska seafood this fresh, unless you get it right off the boat. Often a surprise for many of our customers, the fresh fish found in most fish markets is very rarely the peak quality that the name implies. Fresh fish frequently rests in display cases for hours or days before purchase, exposing your seafood to air and light, fostering the growth of bacteria which can quickly spoil delicate fats such as omega-3s. Fresh too often simply means thawed. You can never be certain with previously frozen product how long it has been thawed, how long after it was caught until it was frozen, or if it had been thawed or refrozen one or more t. Alaska's 2024 salmon season officially opened on Thursday the 16th of May, with the kickoff of the Copper River sockeye fishery. The 2024 commercial harvest forecasts for the Copper River District, located in the Prince William Sound region, are 1.3 million sockeye salmon, 46% above the 10-year average of 893,000 fish, and 47,000 chinook, which is 2% below the 10-year average of 48,000 fish. However, the inside closure area of the Chinook fishery will be closed during early season fishing periods for conservation purposes and may be expanded early in the season to include waters inside the Barrier Islands east of Coffee Creek, according to Alaska Fish News. The day was also marked by the announcement from Silver Bay Seafoods that it will pay a base price of 80 United States cents, 74 euro cents, per pound for unchilled sockeye salmon caught in Bristol Bay and 1 United States dollar and 10 cents, 1 euro and 1 cent, per pound for chilled Bristol Bay sockeye, plus a bonus for bled fish. In 2023, base prices for Bristol Bay salmon weren't announced until July, and the season sported some of the lowest prices in recent times at an average of 52 United States cents, 48 euro cents, per pound, according to data from the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. We are clearly optimistic about the Alaska salmon industry. Silver Bay has expanded our programs statewide, Silver Bay Seafood's CEO Cora Campbell told National Fisherman. The seafood industry has faced challenges before, and as an industry, we have proven ourselves to be resilient and innovative. At the end of the day, our industry is about harvesting and processing a natural, wild, healthy protein that feeds the world. Looking forward, we believe that core value proposition will overcome any short-term economic or market conditions. The latest forecast from the Alaska Department of Fish and Game predicts the 2024 commercial salmon harvest in the U.S. state will bring in nearly 136 million salmon, a significant drop from the surge of fish harvested in 2023. Commercial harvesters brought in just over 232 million salmon across all species in 2023, which was 43 million, or 23%, more than the pre-season forecast of 189 million fish. Pink salmon made up more than half of the 2023 catch, with 155 million fish harvested. Sockeye was the next top species, with 52 million fish harvested. However, the department is predicting a decrease in the overall salmon catch for the 2024 season, primarily due to a much smaller pink salmon harvest. The government report indicates that there will be nearly 86 million fewer pink salmon harvested in 2024, with just 69 million in the forecast. The report also predicts 40 million sockeye, 24 million chum, and 3 million coho salmon will be harvested in Alaska in 2024. The report notes that there is a great deal of uncertainty in forecasting pink salmon returns, due to their short lifespan and other factors. Despite the massive harvest in 2023, the Alaska seafood sector has been roiled by low prices and demand. Several major processing plants have been closed or sold over the last several months as processors consolidate operations. Most notably, Silver Bay is set to take over Peter Pan Seafood's Alaska business and is already operating some of its facilities for the 2024 season. Alaska lawmakers voted to establish a seafood industry task force this month to address those concerns and many others, as the state's seafood sector faces these multiple crises. Alaska's seafood industry is in a tailspin from facing unprecedented challenges, the legislation sponsors wrote when introducing the task force earlier this year, according to the Alaska Beacon. Alaskan fishermen, processors, processing workers, and support businesses are challenged with extremely low prices, plant sales and closures, lost markets, credit concerns, and foregone fishing opportunities. The hit to Alaska's economy in 2023 alone is estimated to be $2 billion United States dollars, 1.8 billion euros. a.m. Monday through 9 a.m. Friday. From June 1st through September 30th within the water. Areas of the Naknek Lake by specific regulations. In the
because it is perishable and processed, turned into canned food. Japan's tuna catch is about 168,000 tons. Topping the list is Shizuoka Prefecture, followed by Miyagi Prefecture in second place.
The area of the Nishagik River from Nishagik Point, the northern boundary of the Nishagik Commercial Salmon Fishing District, to Lewis Point and including the lower Wood River upstream to Red Bluff. Subsistence fishing for salmon from 9 a.m. July 2nd to 9 a.m. July 17th is limited to 3 24-hour fishing periods per week. Each period starts at 9 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday and Saturday and ends at 9 a.m. the following day.
Taiwan came in second place, followed by Japan in third place. In terms of consumption, Japan is by far the leading country, consuming about 1/5 of the world's tuna output. The first auction, at Tokyo's Tsukiji Market, has become an annual news event.
For thousands of families who fish Bristol Bay, the world's largest sockeye fishery, working the family boat is a rite of passage. The adrenaline of the short season, with tens of millions of fish running into the bay's 6 rivers over just a few weeks in June and July, gets many rookies hooked on a lifelong love of fishing. When you first start out, it's chaotic and jarring, and absolutely addicting, Ure said. The 3 to 7 days that are the peak, the fish are charging upstream, and you're going from hundreds of pounds to thousands of pounds in your net, which is really exciting. More than half the world's sockeye salmon comes from Bristol Bay in southwest Alaska, where the state, scientists, fishing industry and Alaska Native tribes work together to sustainably manage the fishery.
Many of you may have heard about it on the news. Countries continue to compete for tuna to eat as food and tuna to sell as a high-value product. Eat well and stay healthy. The power of tuna. Have you ever heard a registered dietitian providing dietary guidance say, eat more fish than meat? Even if it's fish, eat lean meat. Tuna is one of the foods that is often recommended even to people with dietary restrictions. Let's see what kind of power is hidden.
Last year, a record 82 million sockeye returned to the bay. About 600,000 pounds of the 60 million salmon caught were carried fresh out of the Bristol Bay community of King Salmon, AKN, on Alaska Air cargo freighters, destined for restaurants and grocery stores and ultimately, diners' plates across the country and around the world. By the beginning of next year, we will add 2 new larger freighters, essentially doubling the fleet's capacity. Those freighters will also be certified to fly long hauls over open water, including from remote communities like King Salmon to Seattle. The cooperative effort to manage Bristol Bay sockeye responsibly goes back more than 75 years. When the fishing industry asked scientists to track salmon returns, said Daniel Schindler, a fishery sciences professor at the University of Washington.
Muscles, skin, hair and nails, and is an important building block for the body. Tuna is a high-quality protein with an amino acid score of 90 and contains more protein per 100 grams than beef or chicken.
They came here with the intention of catching lots of fish, but they also wanted to do it right, said Schindler, who has been studying the bay's salmon habitat for 27 years. Millions of sockeye returned to Bristol Bay during June and July. The State Department of Fish and Game has fine-tuned its system to manage the returns of salmon to each river feeding the bay. One of the reasons salmon management has been so successful in Bristol Bay is it's really set up to be adaptive, Schindler said. If the runs come back weak, the harvest rates are reduced very quickly. Similarly, if a run comes back bigger than anticipated, the managers have the flexibility to open it up.
Other than comparing prices at the supermarket. This time let's learn about these types. Bluefin tuna. Bluefin tuna is a large fish with a body length of about 4 meters and weight of about 600 kilograms. This is the highest quality tuna, with the majority being fatty tuna. It is caught in the waters around Japan, the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. Southern bluefin tuna, Indian tuna. About 2 meters long and weighs about 200 kilograms.
Schindler said another key to the fishery's sustainability is a commitment to protect the watershed habitat from pollution near salmon spawning grounds. And he said the fishery has also benefited from a bit of luck. So far, the warming of oceans and lakes from climate change has seemed to help Bristol Bay sockeye, with returns today far surpassing returns in the 1970s. In contrast, rivers further south in Alaska have seen declining returns as ocean temperatures have risen. Fresh salmon are offloaded and processed at the Trident Seafoods facility in Naknek, bound for an Alaska Air cargo freighter from King Salmon, AKN, later the same day. Photos by Joe Nicholson, Alaska Airlines. The long-term goal isn't about making the big buck just this year. It's really been about how do we keep the system going for a long time. Seattle chef Renee Erickson grew up fishing for salmon in Washington state, and sources the seafood and produce for her 9 restaurants as locally as possible. But 5 years ago, she decided to take her home state's Chinook salmon off her menus.
Avoid those with transparent white sugar. Is the best. A recipe for delicious souk sauce, but it's a waste if you just want to preserve it. Soy sauce, mirin, sake equals 3:2 to 1. Combine the spices, boil gently and let cool before marinating.
There are key differences between Atlantic salmon versus sockeye salmon that give each species its unique nutritional profile, flavor, and appearance. These qualities are a direct result of how and where each spends its life, reflecting the complexity of nature and the limitations of human intervention through finfish aquaculture. Wild sockeye salmon develop their robust qualities in a vast marine ecosystem, swimming thousands of miles over a lifetime in an epic hunt for food. This is in stark contrast to farm-raised Atlantic salmon, who are typically confined to a net pen, often situated in polluted, coastal waters, where they're fed engineered pellets that can never truly replace a wild diet. Is sockeye salmon better than farmed Atlantic salmon? Yes, when you compare the health impact and environmental effects of sockeye versus farmed Atlantic salmon. Sockeye salmon from Alaska is rich with nutrients from the wild and is more flavorful than farmed Atlantic salmon. Farmed Atlantic salmon is fed dye to resemble wild salmon, but it's much less flavorful. More importantly, farmed Atlantic salmon is contaminated with chemicals that can have a serious effect on your personal health. The practices espoused at a typical salmon farm also contaminate surrounding ecosystems and create competition for resources between farmed salmon and wild species. Between its texture and flavor, sockeye is one of the boldest species of wild salmon. If you've never tasted sockeye salmon before, the first bite of this species might be a pleasant surprise. Its robust flavor and texture are a reflection of its habitat and life cycle, giving you a true taste of nature. Sockeye has a salmon-forward flavor that is bold enough to enjoy on its own or to be paired with intense flavor profiles. This species also has a meaty, dense quality as it is quite lean, but it's a good source of omega-3 fatty acids. Farmed Atlantic salmon doesn't pack the same punch as sockeye salmon. It is significantly less flavorful. Farmed Atlantic salmon is also much higher in fat. The diet of farmed Atlantic salmon gives them an overabundance of omega-6 fatty acids. This is unnatural for the species, who become bloated and stressed. These characteristics result from the diet of pellets, typically engineered from soy and corn, which is deficient in the nutrients from the wild that give sockeye its rich qualities. These pellets are often supplemented with fish oils, but not nearly enough to match the fat ratios of a wild diet. The fat profile of farmed Atlantic salmon can also be problematic for the humans who eat this fish on a regular basis. Diets with an excess of omega-6 fatty acids are associated with a higher risk of chronic illnesses. In contrast, diets that have higher ratios of omega-3 fatty acids, featuring foods like sockeye salmon, may lead to healthier outcomes. This is critical to note when cooking with salmon recipes that don't specifically call for a wild species like sockeye. Most recipes treat farmed Atlantic salmon as the default choice, so cook times will correspond to farmed salmon. When cooking sockeye with these recipes, you should expect to reduce the total cooking time in order to avoid overcooking the fillet. For recipes with cook times that are more accurate to wild sockeye salmon, explore some of Wild Alaskan Company's favorite wild salmon recipes. Or, sharpen your wild salmon cooking skills with the help of step-by-step guides. You may also find that you prefer lean, wild salmon cooked to a different doneness than farmed Atlantic salmon, so it's worth looking over recommended internal cook temperatures for wild species. When it comes to wild Alaskan sockeye versus Atlantic salmon, sockeye is healthier across several considerations. Due to a diet rich in krill, plankton, and small fish, wild salmon are naturally a good source of omega-3 fatty acids that can help stave off
prey of these predators. Some popular options include